Hello everyone, and welcome to Mechanics in Minutes, a series where I help you learn the many mechanics of Path of Exile. In this video, we'll be covering Anarchy. Anarchy is Path of Exile's first challenge league. Making its appearance in patch 0.11 of the open beta, the Anarchy League pitted players against an all-new type of enemy. Out in the world, you might run into someone that looks like you, fights like you, and is trying to survive just like you. Could this be a kindred spirit? A friend, perhaps? No, this is a rogue exile. Whereas you sought refuge in towns and clung to the comforts of civilization, rogue exiles chose a different path, embodying what it truly means to be exiled. Let your guard down and you might get your skull bashed in, be torched alive, or be deftly disemboweled. Survive, kill your foe, and you'll find more loot than you know what to do with. Despite being Path of Exile's oldest mechanic, Anarchy has aged incredibly well. It was integrated into the core game when Path of Exile went live in late 2013. Today, you might randomly encounter rogue exiles as early as the Prisoner's Gate of Act 1. When you get to the endgame map system, Anarchy is categorized as extra content and has a chance of naturally occurring in your maps. Now that we have a brief description of Anarchy, let's talk about the mechanics of rogue exiles. This one will be quick because there aren't many. Rogue exiles are categorized as unique monsters. They have passive skills and use skill gems, much like your own character. The most important thing that you'll want to know is that rogue exiles drop at least one item for every equipment slot in the inventory. This provides players with a generous amount of loot during the campaign and can be scaled up to drop dozens of items via item quantity modifiers in the endgame. There are a total of 34 rogue exiles, and while we won't be going through each and every one of them, I do want to mention a few that you should look out for. Aura Greengate is a ranger that uses the Legacy Val Rain of Arrows skill. This is a skill that pins your character in place, immobilizing you and leaving you vulnerable. Igna Phoenix is a witch that has a fake Chaos Inoculation mechanic. Instead of making her immune to chaos damage, it fails to bypass her energy shield instead. Combined with high energy shield regeneration, she can be deceptively tanky. Magnus Stonethorn is a Templar that uses the Flame Blast skill supported with fire penetration. Penetration bypasses a portion of your resists, so expect him to deal tons of damage. Xandro Blooddrinker is a Marauder that has the Resolute Technique Keystone passive. This is a death sentence for evasion-based builds since his hits cannot be evaded. He also regenerates and leeches a lot of health, making him a deadly drain tank. As I mentioned earlier, Anarchy is categorized as extra content. This means that you can choose to invest into Atlas passives to enhance the frequency, difficulty, and rewards of rogue exiles you encounter in maps. Let's have a look at some of these passives and where you can find them on the Atlas passive skill tree. Rogue Trader gives naturally occurring rogue exiles in your maps a chance to have additional rewards. However, it also doubles their life. This is an Atlas passive that I do not recommend taking unless you have a build that does super high DPS. Royal Guard gives map bosses a chance to be accompanied by 2 rogue exile bodyguards. The bodyguards take half as much damage, but they also drop extra loot. Ruckus gives your maps a chance to contain 20 additional rogue exiles. And Exiled Will causes rogue exiles in your maps to be possessed by tormented spirits. This makes them more difficult, but also significantly increases their item quantity modifier. The map device offers you a crafting option for 2 chaos that makes your map contain 3 additional rogue exiles. The imbued crafting option increases the chance of you finding fractured items from rogue exiles. For those of you that have never seen a fractured item before, they're items with a modifier etched into them. For example, this Hubris Circlet will always have a fractured fire-resistant suffix no matter what I do to the item. There are also a few Scarabs for the Anarchy mechanic. The Anarchy Scarab makes your map contain 4 additional rogue exiles. You can use up to 4 of these in any one map. The Anarchy Scarab of Gigantification gives a 30% chance to replace rogue exiles with rogue giants. Rogue Giants split into 2 Rogue Exiles when killed, each of which will split into 2 Exiles once again. This means that a single Rogue Giant spawns a total of 7 unique monsters for you to kill. You can use up to 2 of these in any one map. The Anarchy Scarab of Partnership gives Rogue Exiles a 50% chance to spawn in pairs. This is additive with similar modifiers from your Atlas passive skill tree. Whenever possible, I like to provide contemporary examples of how a mechanic is used by players. This time around, I'd like to use a cooking analogy. Anarchy is a lot like spices in a good recipe. You'll rarely see a main course featuring Rogue Exiles, but you might see them sprinkled alongside other mechanics to complement and bring out the flavors of the meal. Anarchy's strength is adding unique monsters to maps that drop a large number of items. This means that you will commonly find it used alongside any mechanic that benefits from killing unique monsters. First up, we have Significant Trove that makes unique monsters drop more Scarabs. Take this on your Atlas and fill your map with Rogue Exiles to find more Scarabs. Second, we have Paranoid Fixation that makes delirious unique monsters drop more Cluster Jewels. Take this on your Atlas alongside a method of guaranteeing delirium to find more Cluster Jewels on your adventures. Third, we have the Reliquary Scarab of Overlords that make unique monsters drop 1 additional unique item. Use this on your maps and fill it with Rogue Exiles to find dozens of uniques in each map. Using the Anarchy Scarab of Gigantification for all of these strategies mentioned above adds even more unique monsters to your map. For example, a single Rogue Giant encounter can drop at least 7 unique items when using the Reliquary Scarab of Overlords. And since Exiled Will guarantees Rogue Exiles to be possessed by tormented spirits, consider taking the Torment Atlas passives to further increase the quantity of items dropped by Rogue Exiles in your maps. In patch 3.24 Necropolis, players could use the All-Flame Ember of Anarchy to add 1 additional Rogue Exile to a pack of monsters. When used on a pack with the items to currency conversion modifier, Rogue Exile spawned this way could drop dozens of items, some of which gets converted to stacks of currency. Here's an example of me running a T17 map using a combination of the strategies we discussed. We're using the Imbued Map device to make Rogue Exiles drop fractured items, we've invested into Significant Trove to make unique monsters drop more Scarabs, and we've used an All-Flame Ember of Anarchy on a pack of monsters with the Weapons to Chaos conversion modifier. This is the loot I got from a 10-minute map. And that's it for Anarchy. I want to end this episode of Mechanics in Minutes with some words of advice. If you can't beat them, join them.